Let's go. It's time. Put on play pants.
Okay, here we go. Episode number 46. We're coming down on the first quarter of the year, 2022. That's freaking me out a little bit. We are running out of March. A couple of things that we want to get to today on the show. Angus Young turned 67 on Thursday, the 31st, and we're going to do a top 5 AC/DC song list, our favorites. And as always, it's horrible to try to narrow down your top 5. We got to talk about Taylor Hawkins and what's going on with the Foo Fighters. That was horrible news, and everybody's still kind of reeling from that. But I did want to do a shout out, Jason Ginty. When this podcast comes out on the 31st, Thursday of March 2022, it'll be the 22-year anniversary of High Fidelity.
Yeah.
Now, why would we spend so much time, or why would I put so much shine on a movie, a John Cusack movie? Number one, it's a really, really good movie, and it's a music-based movie, so it fits in really nice with this podcast. But I'm not going to lie. The fact that we do a top 5 list on this podcast, every single podcast, we have to throw it back to the movie High Fidelity, because that's one of the main bases of the movie. John Cusack is constantly doing top 5 lists throughout the movie.
And I've only seen that movie a couple of times. I've not gone back and watched it in a while. But the top 5.
Man, I've seen that movie 100 times at least.
It's so great. That's where he goes back and like his chick breaks up with him. And then he goes back and like hunts down all his old girlfriends. Right. And he works in a record store, and he's always making a top 5. And he bases all his lists on music, right? Top 5.
Well, he's going through a breakup too. So I did a little bit of research for us. So number one, if you're going to listen to this podcast and leave a comment that the book was better, okay, maybe the book was better. Okay. In this case, I did hear that the book was much better than the movie. So I'm not going to give you shit. You can totally get away with that, making that comment, and I'm not going to give you hell or call you a snobby asshole. But I did hear that the book was great. John Cusack is great in this movie.
Yeah.
He, and I don't know if there's some technical term for it, but he breaks down the wall of the movie and he looks at the camera and he talks to you during the movie.
Yeah. He breaks the fourth wall.
The fourth wall.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's going through a breakup. He owns a record store. Jack Black is in the movie. He's got some other funny employees, and they're all just super music snobs. Think about an independent music store, and the people that work there, you go and ask them a question and they're just like, ugh, why would you want me to look up that record? You know,
right,
and it's so funny. They're so snobby and elitist in this movie. But John Cusack looks into the camera and does a bunch of different top 5s. See if some of this rings a bell for you. Okay. I'm not going to go through them all.
That was the first introduction to me to Jack Black. Wasn't that like his first movie? Because I remember watching
that. Was the year 2000. So
he was funny as shit in that movie.
Where would we have seen Jack Black before that? When did Orange County come out? Around the same time. He was the brother.
Yeah. And then you had School of Rock, which was somewhere in that zone.
That was after. That was definitely after. So right. I wonder if that was our introduction to Jack Black.
It's the first time I saw him, I'm like, who's this goofy, chubby guy? He's hysterical. And then he could sing right at the end.
Oh, yeah, he sings. Yeah. That's when we knew that he was musical. So he's going through a breakup. The first list that he does in the movie, and his character name is Rob in the movie, John Cusack, and Rob's Desert Island all-time top 5 most memorable breakups. And that kind of starts the whole theme of the movie, because he goes back to all the chicks that he's broken up with, and he wants to know why they broke up, because he's trying to make some sense out of why it's not working with his current chick. It sounds complicated. It's not. It's not at all. It's very, very funny. They do Rob's top 5 favorite books, and his number 1 was Cash by Johnny Cash.
Oh, nice.
A lot of music stuff. He likes Kurt Vonnegut and things like that. Top 5 favorite films he does in the movie.
All right.
Number 5, The Shining. Number 4, Taxi Driver. And the thing about it, this is going back to he's our age in the movie. So it's super relatable if you're Gen X. You know, it's 2000. It's post grunge. No, it's not 2000. It's got to be older than that, right?
You put 2000 on the sheet that you say I never read, so I'm just gonna go with what you sent, man. I'll dig
No
it
way.
up right now.
It's older. It's got to be older. That can't be right.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right. I'll look it up. You keep going with your top fives here. Hold on.
It's got to be about 10 years before that. 2000. It's not 19. Because that movie came out. We were in New Orleans.
Yeah, 2000. Yeah.
Really?
2000 was 22 years ago. It's a long fucking time ago, dude.
Yeah, I guess so. And we were living in the gray house so we had moved into the gray house in Metairie with the pool because we were listening to the soundtrack. So it was 2000.
As hetero life mates would. Okay, let's just make sure we're clear on that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Rob's top 5 favorite films: The Shining at number 5, Taxi Driver, the first 2 Godfathers. Sounds like he counted them as 1. Right. Cool Hand Luke, and his number 1 movie was Blade Runner. So he was cool, man. Yeah. Now, they did have a top 5 in the record store, and this will be the last one. The other guy, so Barry was the Jack Black character, and the bald guy's name was Dick. So it was Barry and Dick's top 5 songs about death, a Laura Dad tribute list. Because
that's right.
The character's girlfriend dad dies, and that's how they talk. He's like, hey, Laura's dad died, blah, blah, blah. Jack Black immediately said, okay, top 5 songs about death. And they just roll it in with the dialogue, and they just constantly argue about top 5s. And it's we have completely ripped off that whole thing. It's because it's such a huge part of what we do every week on our podcast. So I really wanted to make sure that everybody knew the movie High Fidelity. Number 1, there was one summer that we just listened to nothing but that soundtrack. Yeah. We listened to it every weekend, front to back, drinking in the backyard by the pool. And then the movie itself is super great, and I can't recommend it enough.
It is great. And I forget, as hetero life mates that summer, we spent a lot of time in the pool with a lot of people at that house, dude. We'll never do a podcast about what happened in that yard. We'll never do that. That's never going to happen. But I do remember it being a blast. And I was introduced to a lot of great music by watching that movie. And then, of course, listening to that soundtrack over and over again. Damn it. Now I got to put another movie on my list of things to watch. Son of a bitch. It's funny that you bring this up. I thought you came up with this top 5 idea. You're like, hey, you know what we should do on the podcast? We were thinking this thing through last year. Like, we should do a top 5 list of like movies. And I'm like, oh, fucking brilliant, Rodney. You're so smart at this. Stole it all. You just fucking stole everything. Okay.
I have ripped off everything that I've ever done in my career. So I'm just showing you where the bodies are buried right now.
I had a guy go, hey, dude, I love your podcast the other day. A friend of mine, he's like, man, I've been listening for a long time. I go, holy shit, really? Wow. I hope I didn't say anything bad about you. Got to keep that in mind. I feel like every time we do this podcast, I really feel like it's just me and you talking. I don't even think anyone else is listening. I really am in that weird, like when you and I start talking, it's how it is when we hang out. We just start talking. I forget. I'm like, I'll be mid-sentence go, yeah, I probably shouldn't say that because I'm going to get in trouble. But my buddy's like, those top 5 lists are so fucking great because you guys are like, okay, we're going to do a top 5 list. And it takes you an hour to get through it because you got so many things, tangents and stories to go around and weave. And I'm like, just like that movie. You're right.
It's tough. And this one's going to be tough. This AC/DC one's going to be brutal. I mean, they have fucking a million great songs. It's going to be tough. But going back to you and I just kind of sitting around and shooting the shit, Jason and I, when we get on, because we also have a YouTube component to this. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're just downloading and listening, thank you very much. But we also have this up on YouTube. So Jason will call me up and we'll hook up via Zoom. And then now we're looking at each other. So him and I shoot the shit because we haven't really talked all week. So Jason and I are catching up and we're talking. And then usually it's about 15, 20 minutes in. So one of us just says, hey, this is fucking stupid. Why don't we just hit record and do this? Why are we wasting all of this while we're talking? We can let's just do this now. I mean, of course I'm catching up on the family and everything else, but then we start talking about other shit and it's not on the podcast. And I'm like, you might as well just hit record sooner, dude.
I know. And it's funny because like when we were first, a long time ago, when the podcast idea came up, it was like someone just goes, just fucking throw a microphone in between you two dipshits when you're hanging out. And there you go. There's a podcast. I'm like,
no. Daddy would be in HR's office the day after you hit publish and that went on the internet, that would no.
Wait. We have an HR person for the podcast? When did we get so sophisticated? Oh, you mean for your real job, not the podcast job.
There's no hiding. There's no hiding. It's just like when you're everywhere. A police officer, when you're off duty, you're still a cop. Does that make sense?
You're still a DJ and you're representing a company. That's why there's certain times I'm like, oh, I'd love to go down a different road right now, but I can't. So, but you
truck drivers would tell me that. They said, man, I got to be careful when I party. I'm like, well, of course you don't drink in your truck, right? He's like, no. Anywhere. It doesn't matter. I'm always held to like a truck driver standard. So, I can't really ever drive and even have any alcohol in my system. I'm like, wow. No. But like the cop thing though, you're always a cop. Well, wait a minute, you're off duty. Yeah, guess what? You're a cop.
Yeah, and we're always the guy on the radio. We're always the dipshit hanging on with one finger on that bottom rung of the entertainment scale. And Rod, I know you've probably talked the shit out of this, and I don't want to talk about it today because it's already done. It's done. I don't care. The Will Smith thing, the Chris Rock thing, it got me thinking, okay, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about it. You do you. But it got me thinking, I'm like, have I ever been in a situation in my life where I had to defend the honor of a lady friend? And I did. It hit me the other day, like 3 days after, I saw the thing on the Oscars. And then like yesterday, I was like, oh, I've kind of done something similar. Not exactly, but similar. I've defended the honor of a lady. And I was completely probably out of line when I did it too. And I was such a dick. So have you ever stepped up in the situation like that through the years and been like, hold on, bro, not cool.
I have, but because we're not talking about it, let's talk about it.
I know.
I was going back and forth with a lot of different people, and men and women women were like, hey, he was defending his woman, man. There's nothing wrong with that. You mean to tell me you're not going to defend your woman? It was just like a blanket statement like that. And I said, hang on a second. When I was younger, and we talked about this in an earlier podcast, I fought. I got into a lot of fights growing up into my early 20s. Okay. We were fighting all the time. And it's not something that I'm really proud of. I would not want my daughter to know I did all that. And I got it out of my system. Now, have there been times before where I've wanted to take a swing at somebody or something? Yeah. But I shut down every discussion that I had. And I said, listen, Chris Rock told the laziest joke ever. And he's going to be known. Everyone knows the joke now. And it was unfunny. It was uninspired. It wasn't clever. It was stupid. Now we know about her condition. So it seems super insensitive.
Right.
But it's not illegal. So words, what we do for a living, we're First Amendment guys here. At least I am. Okay. And totally. Words were said. What Will Smith did was illegal. I can't shut it down quick enough. And, people do put these terms. That is assault and battery. That's illegal. Words are not illegal. There's other ways to defend your woman. And I think you could have taken it up with him, and you could have even bowed up and got in his face and threw your own words, at him. But walking up there and slapping him, I hate Will Smith right now. And he had no right. He needs to give his Oscar back. And the Academy, the longer it takes, I think the better it is for Will, the longer it takes. They should have taken his Oscar away, and they should have escorted him out. The first thing they should have done was escorted him out. Where was security? There's no cops there. There's nobody on stage. They left Chris Rock just there. They left him.
Yep.
Standing up there by himself. I can't support anything that Will Smith did. Well, that means you don't defend your woman? Different argument, dude. Different argument. And people can't get past that. The other thing I'll say, it wasn't fake. It just wasn't fucking fake. There's a ton of people, dude, that believe it was staged.
That's just ridiculous.
A ton of people think it was staged.
It wasn't. It was not staged. They would have. There would have been a different resolution. They would have resolved it like a movie. Anytime they have a bit, there's always a bit. Then they resolve it. There was no resolution. What Will said. What Will Smith, when he did what he did, I was like, man, you fucked up. And he did. And then not only did he fuck up, it's what he said from the seat after he went back and sat down. It just piled on. And then when he won, he didn't even try to make amends. He just said the dumbest shit. I'm like, dude, that was your moment to fix this.
Did you see Jim Carrey's comments this morning or yesterday?
Yeah.
And I said the exact same thing, and Jim said it better than me. But I mean, the hypocrisy of Hollywood. Anyone that was dancing, anybody that was getting jiggy with it, and they were dancing with Will Smith at the after party, and anyone that stood, I want receipts. I want to see the photograph when he went up there. I want to know who stood up. I want to know who gave him a standing ovation, because number one, he shouldn't have been in the building. You stood up and gave him a standing ovation. He just assaulted somebody, and you stood up for him. And it's like, well, Rod, one doesn't relate to the other. Bullshit, man. That was the Oscars. It's their night, not his night. It's their night. And what he did was on their watch. They fucked up by not removing him immediately. I don't care that I didn't know Will Smith was the most powerful man in Hollywood. I didn't know that before that night, but I didn't know he was completely untouchable.
I kept waiting for him to come in and escort him out too, or him to just disappear. Like they'd pan over to his seat and there'd be somebody else sitting there. I kept like thinking for the right thing to happen.
They messed up.
And obviously he's got other issues going on, man. Sit there and someone makes a joke about your wife. Dude, first of all, that chick is not some helpless little innocent fawn. Okay. That chick's been in Hollywood. She's been in movies. She's been on TV shows. She knows the game. When you sit in that audience, guess what you know? You know you're going to eat shit from the guy.
Especially if you're in the front row, right in front of a stand-up comedian. I'll say this.
A shock.
Chris Rock is handled that so well. And, we have really, you and I have very little comparables, but we've been on stage in front of a crowd with a microphone and, stand-up comedians. I mean, that was like being heckled, and that was scary now for stand-up comedians. And I think that's why Jim Carrey was so kind of on Chris Rock's side. Jim Carrey started out and is always, you're never not a stand-up comedian. Even doesn't matter how many movies you've done. Right. There can't be one stand-up comedian. And that's why fucking Whoopi Goldberg, man, she should be ripping into him. She's a stand-up comedian. Joy Behar. They don't want to say anything on The View because they want to be around for Will Smith's apology tour and they want him first. So they're not trying to get themselves in trouble. And Whoopi's on some sort of Academy Award committee. And they're handling this with such kid gloves. Those are the only two stand-ups that I saw that weren't completely on Chris Rock's side.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep going down the road because I think we've all seen it and stuff. But I was going to give an example because I've been in that situation years ago where I defended. Actually, it wasn't even my wife; it was my sister-in-law. She just went through dental school, right? So she won all these awards and she was top of her class, all this shit. So we're out, me, the wife, my sister-in-law, and then like the guy who ran the residency at the dental college and all that stuff, whatever it was, her boss, basically, his wife were there. We go out to dinner and everyone's like having a great time. They give her all the awards. Awesome. And then they're like, hey, let's go out and get some beers and celebrate. I'm like, oh, let's do it. Well, we go from bar to bar to bar and her dude who ran the dental program just was kind of giving me some weird vibes. And he started saying some kind of inappropriate things along the way, right? Like, hey, man, your sister-in-law, she's hot. I'm like, so is your wife, bro. Like, I shut him down right away.
Hey.
And then we end up going down to the gold mine, which, of course, nothing good happens at the gold mine. Why don't you just do some flaming Dr. Peppers out of that bar in the French Quarter? So the dude, his wife goes to the bathroom and he just starts unloading all this very vile, horrible things about my loving sister-in-law, right? And he's being pretty fucking graphic. I'm standing there with a full beer, a cup of beer in my hand. I look right at him. I go, dude, I've already said twice to you, you got to stop saying shit like that. I picked up my beer and I poured it over the top of his fucking head.
Oh,
I set my cup down. It's her boss, by the way. And my wife looks at me and her jaw is just literally dragging on the ground. Like, what the fuck did you just do? I look at my wife. I go, we're leaving. I grab my sister-in-law. I go, we're leaving. We walk out and they go, what the fuck did you just do? I go, and I didn't get it. I didn't explain in detail what he was saying because I was trying to protect all the innocent.
You had to explain something. You can't just pour a beer over his head.
No, I explained a lot. And I'm like, look, he fucking deserved it, man. And he's an asshole and fuck that guy, that whole thing. And then, calmed all down, and she, you know, we worked it all out. And I think later on he did kind of apologize, saying, hey, he was out of line. But I'm like walking around the rest of the night going, I just fucking poured a beer at my sister-in-law's boss at the time. I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? So I get when your emotions can take over and you're trying in your head, you're doing the right thing. Did I do the right thing there? Kind of, but not really. I should have just said something stupid to the guy. Hey, that's enough. And we should have just walked out quietly. I'm not trying to equate my situation to Will Smith, but I see where you get a little fired up and the nerves are high. I know you're going to get a new trophy that night. So, but I'm not defending him at all. He fucked up.
Of the 50 fights that I got in with Dumb Butel and the all these dummies,
right?
Of the 50 fights, maybe I'm just ballparking it more than that. If there was 50, 48 of them were about a girl. So the answer to your question, yes. And that's another reason why I just said, man, I got that out of my system a long time ago. Will Smith is my age or older, right? I mean, I think we're the same age. He's 53.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You know.
No, I can't say, I don't want to keep going down this road because it's been beat to death. I don't want to fucking keep hammering a dead fucking horse here.
He needs to give, I think they need to strip him of the Oscar. I do. I think he disgraced the institution.
Well, you know what else he disgraced was the dad of Venus and Serena and the family. Like he was like trying to equate himself to the dad. I'm like, bitch, you're an actor.
If I see one fucking tweet from either one of them, if I see Jada Pinkett Smith or Will Smith preaching peace and love, if I see any of that bullshit of them, it's like, hey man, we just got to love one another and blah. Go fuck yourself.
Absolutely.
The Grammys are this weekend. This is how I'm going to segue into talking about Taylor Hawkins. Horrible news. The Grammys, I want to get in front of this. You're going to be upset and you're going to feel like they didn't do enough for your guy. Right. He's my guy. He's Jason's guy. He's our favorite guy. It's our favorite band. Okay. I just remember how everybody lost their shit that they didn't feel they did enough for Eddie Van Halen. Taylor Hawkins isn't Eddie Van Halen. Okay. So whatever they do, I'm going to get ahead of it. I'm going to say, I appreciate it. You probably could have done a little more, but you got to move things around. The Grammys are on Sunday. Make sure you do something for Taylor Hawkins. And they have said they're going to do it. Let's just not all lose our shit that you didn't think it was enough. It's going to happen, right?
They'll do something, but you're going to be mad. I'm glad you brought it up because I was thinking about it too. And you know what? Since you brought it up, now I'll try not to get so damn mad when that happens. Because, you got to
I'm telling everybody, calm down. I'm talking you off the ledge right now. Any mention, anything of a little montage of him or whatever. Okay, that's it. It's the drummer of the Foo Fighters. Be happy with it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got to get to Lady Gaga and Dua Lipa's shit. You got to get all that in. Taylor Hawkins, if it wasn't for, him passing away, Foo Fighters don't even get a blip on the radar on the Grammys.
They were scheduled to perform live. So
that's right.
This is my other thing that I'll throw at you. Okay, they were set to play live. They would have done a 3.5 minute song. Do they give Taylor that 3.5 minutes? We were going to give the Foo Fighters this time anyway. The problem is, if you give them 3.5 minutes, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go time what you did for Eddie Van Halen. And then I might get a little upset at that. So nobody is going to be satisfied. Mark my words, on Monday morning, the family and this and that, and there wasn't enough. And it's just, it's coming. It's coming.
It is. And hopefully they just get somebody to maybe do a song and that's that. And what's tough is Taylor Hawkins, he had a couple of songs he sang on, but it's the Foo Fighters. It's a Foo Fighters song. So what do you do in that situation?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's weird.
We don't even officially know. There really is no official word that the Foo Fighters are not playing. We talked about this on the air. The Jazz Fest, they were scheduled for Jazz Fest. Now, you got to look at the wording of, everybody's just dissecting everything.
Right.
And I promise we'll talk specifically about Taylor, but, just looking ahead at the tour, they canceled the upcoming tour. Now, the Grammy show isn't a part of their tour. It's just a show. But people were kind of holding out thinking, man, do you think they'll still kind of appear? And I said, they don't owe the Grammys anything. It's not their forum. They are not. I mean, it would be a huge get for the Grammys, but it's too raw. I go, don't watch the Grammys on Sunday thinking that the Foo Fighters are going to do something. I would put all my chips on that not happening. The Jazz Fest people, if you kind of looked at it, they just retweeted what the Foo Fighters put out on both Facebook and Instagram. They didn't specifically say they're not playing Jazz Fest because they don't know, because they don't.
Nobody. Yeah.
But first, let's talk Taylor. Then let's talk the future of the Foo Fighters. What hasn't been said? What haven't you had a chance to say about Taylor Hawkins yet? I know you love the Foo Fighters just as much as me, and you've seen them just as many times as I did.
How many times have we been on this damn podcast and we've gone through, Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, and just we've talked about how brutal it is to be on the air and how these rock star deaths are hitting so hard. Scott Weiland, Eddie Van Halen. We've gone through all that a bunch of times. And I was watching a stupid new Spider-Man movie with a wife on Friday night, just finished. I get up, go get some water. I look at my phone and there it is. And it was only like 2 minutes old. It the Foo Fighters thing, just like the thing they put out was the first thing I saw. I went, and I stood there like, I didn't know what to do. I went numb like you would. And I was just like, and then I start freaking out like, what the fuck? No way. Who? Everything is a joke. Everything's a fucking joke. And it looks so serious. I'm like, nah. And then you start seeing it just blowing up. Then I'm starting to get texts, dude, what the fuck? And they think I have the answer because I'm on the radio. I don't know shit,
Mm-hmm.
And I just went numb. And I go to my wife. She's sitting on the couch with a couple of wines. And I go, you're not going to believe this. She goes, what? I go, fucking Taylor Hawkins is dead. And then her face looked like just ghostly white. And she just was like, oh. And it was like we all lost a family member because it really did feel that way. If you're a fan of the Foo Fighters, the relationship that Dave and Taylor have had all these years. They're brothers. They finish each other's sentences. And that band, Dave's the front man, but Taylor's like the rock star, man. And just the smile on his face.
After Dave, he's the most recognizable guy in the Foo Fighters. He's the guy that most people know his name. Okay. Right. Most people don't know Nate Mendel as the bass player.
Pat, a little bit.
More people might know Pat Smear, but you're just not going to know the rest of the band. But you're going to know Taylor Hawkins, then you're right. It was like Dave's best friend.
And it started to hit in waves like it always does, right? It hit in waves. At first I was like, fuck, that sucks. And then I went, oh shit, there goes Jazz Fest. You take it home to your personal situation. That sucks because we were all looking forward to it so much. And then I'm like, oh my God, that's Dave's best friend. That's like, and then I start thinking, oh shit, fucking Dave is going through this again. This is bullshit, Yeah. Kurt first, now Taylor, who I know, Dave wasn't super close with Kurt, but you're in the band with a guy all those years and you ran that wave through the grunge era. I'm like, what is this poor guy even thinking right now? How do you even begin to process what just happened? And then of course, now you listen to the music on the radio or you hear the songs and they're all hitting different, man. Every song is hitting different. They're all hitting different. You're hearing it differently now because you're hearing the lyrics a little differently. You're like, oh, there goes my hero. You're like, shit, and it's like, ooh.
Yeah, all of those songs were all of those songs, obviously, they were written years ago. But I do believe, and I mentioned this before, I don't know if you saw a lot of the tribute stuff that the bands were doing. I'll tell you what, Liam Gallagher, he did his own song, Live Forever, put a big picture of him up there. And yeah, Christ, he just mentioned him in my interview with Liam Gallagher. He was talking about Dave Grohl and then all the songs that Taylor was sending him to try to get him to do because he was such an Oasis fan.
Right.
So Liam does one of his own songs and Live Forever was perfect, But then you saw like Wolfgang Van Halen and you saw Tremonti with Daughtry. They both went with My Hero. And you just kind of wonder, whatever Dave wrote that song about back in the day, what is there going to be a song? And again, I want to get into the future of the Foo Fighters, but is there a song that then kind of becomes Taylor's song? Bands, already decided. It seems like My Hero was the one. And, it could just kind of become, that's kind of his song now, that we think of him when that's played. But times like these, all of them, you're right. Every single song is you're thinking about, Taylor Hawkins now during these.
Yeah.
I went back and I looked to refresh my memory, what was the timetable that Dave Grohl went on when Kurt died? Now, when you grieve as a mid 20-year-old man, and now he's a mid 50-year-old man,
right?
54, 53. I think him and I are the same age. Wife and kids. You're not the same person you are when you were 25 years old. But I just felt the need that I wanted to go refresh myself. What happened? Kurt Cobain dies. Dave Grohl's in Seattle, and he said, I couldn't turn on the radio. I couldn't turn on the TV. I couldn't. I had to get out. I had to get away from it all. He's completely blown away. He's like, what the heck? My lead singer, it's my band. It's done. Goes to Ireland, gets out of Dodge, gets out of here, goes to Ireland. Maybe you know what this is. It's some kind of the Kerry Trail or something. Is it the loop?
Yeah, it's like the loop. You're just walking along out in the beautiful green pastures, and you're walking by sheep, and you're just backpacking.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Well, I think it's more, in Ireland, you got to drive. But right. And then he goes to pick up a hitchhiker that's wearing a Nirvana shirt, and he takes that as a sign, comes back, and immerses himself into what we now know as the Foo Fighters. Everybody mourns differently. I remember talking to Mike Shinoda not long after Chester Bennington passed away. And to his knowledge, nobody else in the band was doing anything. They were just chilling. And Mike Shinoda was working on his album. And that's how he chose to grieve. So that's just one point perspective. So Dave Grohl went back in and started working on all these songs and put out in Foo Fighters. That's where we have this from. Tom Petty asked him to be in the band. He's like, nah, I'm working on these songs. And then he's passing them around CD or passing around cassettes to all his buddies. He went right back to work. This is different, dude.
Way different.
This is different. Let me ask you, future of the Foo Fighters. What's your raw emotion right now?
Well, just going by what you just said, when you're 20 something, you don't have as much, excuse me, you don't have kids, you don't have the wife or whatever. You don't have years of experience. You also don't have all these songs of yours on the radio constantly. Nirvana was everywhere, but it was only a couple of songs. If you really think about it, there are Foo Fighters songs everywhere, all the time, everywhere you go. They're one of the biggest bands in the world right now. You know what I mean? They just are. And the family, the Foo Fighters were a family. Okay. That band was a family. They would be hanging out when they weren't touring. They'd still hang out. The families, the wives knew each other. The kids all knew each other. That was a unit. All these families just lost one of the dads. So it's more than just losing your drummer, obviously. Okay.
Sure.
So this is going to take a lot longer, I think. The only thing that I've been watching, of course, now how you do it, you go back, you start watching the YouTube videos. I'm watching the interviews. I'm listening to a lot more Foo Fighters over the last couple of days, right? Something that kept coming up that Dave would say in a lot of the interviews, how he dealt with Kurt's situation. And Taylor Hawkins would be sitting right next to him. He'd say, look, eventually, I went to Ireland. It was a year or so later, and I started getting back into the music. And he goes, that's what I do. I am a musician. I make songs. Music is what I love to do. Music has saved me. Music got me through the Kurt situation. So the only thing I'm hoping is that given a year or longer, however long it needs to take, that then maybe Dave will go, okay, now I'm ready to pick up an instrument. The problem is, the second you pick up an instrument, all you're going to think about is Taylor Hawkins playing the drums behind you and your best friend riffing and going back and forth on songs and structure and all the stuff that bands do. So my only hope for the Foo Fighters returning somewhere way down the road, and I do think it will be way down the road, I'm looking past a year, is because of that. The music will come back around to Dave. He will get hungry to make music again. I do believe he's got too much in him. I just don't know if that Dave spark will be there after this. You know what I mean? Like he's just always been so happy and fun, and just that everything about the Foo Fighters just screams fun. Just in interviews, they're fun. Does that kind of diminish because his BFF is gone, you know, because they were so tight?
So I got things to throw out there. Okay, let's say, I mean, you have to replace this really great drummer. And I loved the whole dynamic. I interviewed Taylor before, and he even said, he goes, geez, I had to go in and replace one of the best drummers of all time. You know, intimidating. So someone else would have to go in there. Now, would Dave, in your opinion, cannot replace Taylor? I'm going to have to cowboy mouth it. I'm going to go back and play the drums and run the show from behind the kit. Can he ever go back to being the drummer? I just don't think you can sing those songs and play those songs on the drums. It is harder to sing and play the drums and sing and play guitar. But is that an option?
I don't think so. I think Dave likes to be out front. I think Dave wants to play guitar and sing. You know, I think they had.
He's a drummer at heart. He always says that. He goes, at my core, I'm a drummer, you know?
I just, you know, and again, I've thought about 50 different combinations. How do we get Dave back? Because we all want him, you know, we all want him to come back. We want the Foo Fighters back. We want Taylor back. Obviously, that part's not happening. Right. But we want Dave to come back in some sort of way. You know, I've talked about it with a wife and my son who loves the Foo Fighters. He's so bummed that we're not going to see him. You know, it's like, well, does Dave just kind of go and do that solo troubadour thing where it's just him? That way, that just makes it him. It's acoustic. He'll just play shows, like kind of like what Chris Cornell was doing before he passed away. Just kind of going out, doing shit, do some Foo songs, do some cover songs, and just ride out into the sunset, just doing that. You did it. You did it twice, actually. You did it twice. Do you just say, okay, I can never go back to the Foo Fighters. I can't turn to my left and look at Pat Smear in the face again on stage. You know what I mean? I don't know. But from my standpoint, that would be hard to do. That would be very hard to do because there's a giant hole sitting behind you.
The other scenario is I was thinking when Nirvana went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they did not dare put a man up there to sing those songs. You go see the Foo Fighters, and I'm just, you know, she's old. Sheila E. is on the drums, right?
Yeah. I mean,
that's got to be talked about. That there is a female back there in the Foo Fighters on the drums.
You know, and I know this is going to sound really fucked up, but we're just thinking out of the box. We're spitballing here. We're trying to save the Foo Fighters, what we're doing here.
Yeah.
The little kid, that Nandi Bushnell, the drummer, she's got to be 14, 15 now? Give it a couple of years. She's got that energy. She's got that Foo Fighters vibe about her. She's always smiling. Dude, I think I just solved the problem.
Yeah.
She's too young now. She's way too young.
She's too young.
She'd be great, though.
So I can see a female in there. And then this is a bad scenario that I came up with. And you can tell my brain's been scrambled by this whole thing as well.
Absolutely.
Foo Fighters, not only our favorite band, but it's easy for us to say, but I think it's true. One of the hardest working bands out there, if not the hardest working band out there. Dave works them, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Now, Pat Smear, if you remember, Pat Smear was in the Foo Fighters. You know, Pat Smear is in that Nirvana Unplugged. So, and Pat was in the Germs. He was kind of a really well-known punk guy in the LA scene. Wasn't a guy that wanted to accumulate stuff. He was definitely a punk on the punk scene. He kind of had a problem becoming famous in the Foo Fighters. He quit. He famously quit the Foo Fighters for a number of years, way back in the early 90s. And then he came back, obviously, and he's been a member of the band ever since. Let me throw this out there at you. I'm Pat Smear. I'm Nate, the bass player. We're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What a fucking run. You know what? If there was ever a time to walk away, nobody wants to let Dave down. Nobody's going to leave that band. You're right. They're the biggest rock band in the world. If you were looking for a reason to go into the boss's office and say, listen, man, I don't know what you got planned, but I'm going to make this easy on you. I might want to do a couple of other things. Maybe the bass player doesn't want to make movies, and Pat doesn't want to be on every award show. And Pat, if you were going to leave the biggest band in the world, this is your door. This is your opportunity.
Led Zeppelin did it.
I think the Foo Fighters, I hate saying, I have not said it out loud yet. I think what happens is the Foo Fighters are done. I just said it out loud.
But it works.
I haven't said it. I've stopped shy every time on the air. We've had this discussion several times. Just all different things talking Foo Fighters. I've not said it. This could be it.
I think it would be terrible for Foo Fighters fans. Obviously, we're all thinking in our own selfish ways. But I think you're right. I think you know what? This is great. You've done it. What else is there to do as a band? You know what I mean? Like, you've done it. You're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You've won the Grammys. You've made the money. You've traveled the world. You've played the stadiums. You're going to keep doing that. That's fine. You want to keep doing it, but you can literally walk away going, I did it all. I did all of it. Led Zeppelin's drummer died. John Bonham died. You know what that band did? They fucking walked away as the biggest band in the world at the time. They just walked away. And I know they've done a very few reunion shows with a kid on drums, but man, I'm telling you, this would be the greatest thing they could probably do if that's what they want to do. They've all got side projects, and Dave can go out and do a solo thing, and he can work. He works with everybody. Everybody knows him. They're all going to want him. He'll make songs still. He'll still do his thing down the road. I think you're right, man. I think that's it. I
fucking hate that you're agreeing with me. I wanted you to say, Rod, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said, and here's why. And you're not taking that opportunity. I don't want you to agree with me when I say I think the Foo Fighters might be done. Fuck.
I don't want it to be. I don't.
No, of course.
I don't want that to happen. But man, when you really put it's like, you win the Super Bowl and you're old as shit. I did the deeds. I did the stuff. I saw the sights, man. I'm out. Drop the mic. Let's go. You could just fade away right now. And then a year and a half from now, Nate puts out an album with one of his old bands. And then, the other guy, Chris Shiflett. And then Pat does something and they got money. They're fine. Everything's cool. If they want to just walk away, they could. We'd all be, lesser for it, obviously, because we all want more from the Foo Fighters. We always will want more.
Right.
But man, you put it that way. Zeppelin did it, man. And I'm not comparing the.
But they're the only other ones that did it. Is there anyone that lost? And believe me, I am never going to say, well, it's just the drummer, but
it's different.
I'm going to stop short of saying it. Did anybody just lose their drummer and called it? Obviously, Zeppelin did it famously. But I'm trying to think of a really big band, that lost their drummer, and then they said, "No, we can't do this anymore. Now, we can't get another drummer." And
but Robert Plant always said that was Led Zeppelin. It was the four of us. We were the combustible parts. We were the engine that drove it. Without one of us there, it's not the same. Yeah. And he got his convictions. That's why he won't ever play with them again, it seems like. And man, I hate that you brought that up because that sucks. It totally makes sense, though, when you think about it.
I hate that you fucking agreed with me.
I do on this, man.
I'm so upset right now.
I have no other. I mean, it just seems like it would make.
I wanted you to say, hey, dummy, here's why you're wrong. Here's a list of 10 things. Here's my top 5 fucking reasons why you're wrong about this.
You can go get Dave. Every drummer on earth is lining up hoping they can be the guy. Okay. maybe you find that guy. Maybe you do, because that can happen. You could find the next guy. You could. It could totally happen. And we could all like him and we'd all respect Taylor and all that. And we could move on. And the Foo Fighters are great. It totally could happen. How do you find that guy? Because Dave's all about, like, it's not about the best musician in that band. It's, can we hang out? Can we get along? Can we be friends? Then can you play the fucking drums? You know what I mean? It's, I don't know, man. I think you might have hit it out of the park when you said that's a good time to just call it.
Ah, man.
Dave may get the boys together in 2 months and go, look, let's just walk away for a while. Let's just walk away for a real long time. And who knows? A year goes by, water under the bridge, time will heal. Then maybe he'll go, hey, boys, let's go get some shit together. Who knows? I don't know. But Jesus.
Whew. He can't get into the rock. It's not that he can't. He won't. I think Clapton's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 3 times.
3 times, yep.
So Dave would have to put out his next project in a year. He's 53, so he'd be 54, add 25 to that. Shit.
He could do it.
If anybody could do it, he could do it, sure. I mean, does he have one more Hall of Fame, trick up his sleeve? Because you got to be, I mean, even if he puts out 1 or 2 things, it's got to be 25 years removed from its release date. So, yeah, I think Clapton's the only 3-timer, right? Neil Young might be in there. Neil Young might be in there with Buffalo Springfield.
Crosby, Stills, Nash, solo.
And Young. And then as a solo artist, is he in there 3 times?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Dave, they might down the road give Dave when he's like 70 or something, the old, like, his contribution to the music with the Sonic Highways, all the films he's done, the documentaries, work with other bands and stuff. So, I mean, there's a third way in there. But at the end of the day, dude, I'm still I can't wrap my head around it yet. I'm still really super bummed out. Just the whole thing hit so hard. And I texted my boss. I go, Taylor Hawkins is dead. And she's like, yeah, I know. I go, put me on the air. I go, put me on the fucking air right now. I go, put me on the air. And
like Friday night?
Friday night. Yeah, dude, I went on the air and I played Foo Fighters songs for an hour and just told some stories and just, I didn't take calls or go down into the station. I did all from my house here because I got the setup at my house. And I just started telling stories and shit, because it was so fresh. And I wanted to be the guy on the air going, hey, look, because with me being in this market so long, I'm kind of the one guy who people go, okay, well, if Dopey Ginty's saying it's okay, holy shit, it's going to be okay in some way. He's going to be here to walk us through it, probably like you would be in Houston. And so I was so numb, and I was just like saying it. I just kept saying the same thing over again, that he had died. We have no other information, and played a Foo Fighters song. Then Sunday night, I did I do a 90s show here in New Orleans. And I did the first hour was all Foo Fighters songs, and I was still numb, and I said a lot more stuff. So then on Monday, because you think the weekends people are listening to the radio in different ways. You're not listening like in your normal pattern where you get up and you do your normal listening.
Yeah, I had to deal with that.
So then on Monday, I've had a couple of days to think about it. I've read everything. I've watched 1,000 videos of Taylor, so I'm really bummed out now. And then in the noon hour, I'm doing another tribute to Foo Fighters and Taylor Hawkins. And I remember saying it live on the air, and I'm talking about, his history with the band and drumming and how hard it was to try and be the drummer in Dave Grohl's band, like we just talked about. And as I'm saying it, I just stopped dead in my tracks and I got choked up, and I'm on the air and I'm like, I just stopped. And you never stop when you're on the air. You keep moving, right? I just stopped and I took a breath and I go, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. I can't believe I'm doing a tribute to the damn Foo Fighters. I can't believe Taylor. I just stopped and I've never done that on the air. I've never done that. I've always kept plowing forward. You get through the bit. And I literally stopped and I was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. And then I finished up the break and I turned the microphone off and I went, okay, that was a weird moment in my life. That was just a weird.
It's not weird. It's real. It's not weird. It's real.
Right.
And it's authentic and
brutal.
That is what people want. That is what they want. Authenticity. There is so much just kind of glazed over. I mean, I don't even want to get into it with voice tracking, but everyone had to go in and adjust their stuff because they had already tracked for the weekend and, shit, if you laid down voice tracks before you left for the weekend and on Sunday or on Saturday, you play a Foo Fighter song and you're just like, here's those Foo Fighters, man. And if you don't mention it, come on. So that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, we had to scramble our station. We had to send other guys back in to do other weekend breaks, And voice tracking, if you're not familiar with voice tracking, it's just you go and you pre-record your breaks. That's all it is. You just like I could do a show right now for Tuesday. You can pre-do it. No one knows the difference. When you listen to the radio, nobody has any damn idea if that person is good at doing that job.
Right.
So yeah, dude, I like it just was brutal. It was just one of the weirdest moments on the air for me. It was just I just clammed up and cracked and I was like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm doing this.
So Radio Wizard, my boss, we're texting. He's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? What do you want? What do you want to do on Monday? And I just said, you know what? Because it's not the day after.
Right.
It happened on Friday. Everyone talked about it all day on Saturday. The radio station played a Foo Fighter song, top of the hour, they're one of our core artists. So we wanted to make sure that we were playing a lot of Foo Fighter music, way more than we normally do. Sunday, Foo Fighter songs. And then I said, well, it's like, okay, outside of like expressing, my thoughts on social media, I want to talk to the audience. I want to talk it out. I want to flush it out a little bit. I'm like, well, let's get a song. Let's get a song at the top of the hour. I'm only on for 4 hours. So 6, 7, 8, 9. He responds and he's like, well, we did that on Saturday. He goes, what about, 7 and 9? And I said, no, I didn't even hesitate. I go, I get it how that you played a song at the top of the hour every day on Saturday. And I'm not disrespectful ever. I mean, he's my boss, but He gives me so much leeway. We can actually have discussions. And in this day and age, you can't even imagine that people have differences of opinion and don't get mad at each other. But it does happen. Believe it or not, it does happen.
It's weird.
So we differ all the time on things. And he said he wanted to do something at 7 and 9 because he had played a song every hour on Saturday. And I said, listen, the connective tissue between Monday morning and Saturday, I'd like to think that everybody heard that and got it out of their system. But for me, I go, everyone knows that's my favorite band. Everyone knows it. And it's just going to give me that opportunity at the top of the hour. And I said, no matter what happens, it's going to give me that moment that I'm going to play a Foo Fighter song and then I'm going to get to talk about it for my first break of the hour. Now I use that term, no matter what happens, I will be talking about Taylor Hawkins right there. Well, Will Smith fucking slapped the shit out of Chris Rock the night before. And thank God I had that fixed position. So he said, okay, he goes, I agree with you. So we put in the 4 songs. I did ask and I got refused. I did ask, and I'm not, don't blow him up with hate mail, but I said, we should play Shadow Dancing, the Barry Gibb cover, because Taylor sings that one. And
Andy
Gibb. That's right. Andy Gibb. The guy, the Gibb brother that wasn't in the Bee Gees.
Right.
And Taylor sings it and it's really good. It's really good. And I got a text a little while after. It's like, yeah, I'm not feeling that. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to push that. I got my 4 songs. I'm not going to push that.
Yeah.
But it was difficult because the Will Smith thing was so big that I shared an email on Tuesday of a guy that fucking blew me up. You piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. You claim to love this band. And all I heard was Will Smith. And I just said, hold on. And I didn't MF him back. I emailed him. I said, here's what we did. And I took the time. This guy's, I'm sure, never listening, nor has he responded to my email. But whenever he tuned in, he heard me talking about Will Smith and not Taylor. And he thought that was so disrespectful. And that's on me. That's my job. I got to juggle this shit and how much time to spend on each thing. We talked about Taylor Hawkins a lot on Monday. Unfortunately, the other a lot was what we didn't even have planned to talk about on this damn podcast. And we ended up talking about Will Smith. Yeah. Just couldn't help ourselves. It was the fact that it was 2 days removed, it was much less raw. And I still got emotional talking about him on the air. And it was, you're like, oh, it's only Monday. Well, it's like, I wasn't best friends with the guy. I met him half a dozen times, always super nice. And then I interviewed him on his own when he was pushing his, and here's something for you guys to go dig up. It's the Coattail Riders, and it's Taylor singing. So he had a bunch of things that he had going on. He had a cover band that was called Chevy Metal. I saw them live. Awesome. They came here to town. I went to go see them. He was playing drums and singing all covers, but he did put out an album. And it may have been Taylor Hawkins' Coattail Riders. And it's good. It's good. It's really, really good. So I was getting choked up, and it was Monday morning talking about him. Yep. And it'll probably be like that for a while. Everyone's asking, how is this one hitting you? And, how are you going to compare different things? When Chris Cornell, when I got the news, I was prepping the show. I was getting ready that morning. Yeah. And, I'm in a goofy mood, and I'm getting ready for the show, and got my head buried in my desk, and I'm getting ready for the show. And then the Cornell thing happened, and I just went, whoa. It was like Will Smith slapped me.
Too soon, dude.
Taylor being 2 days removed, I was a little bit more collected, and knew kind of how I wanted to do it.
Yeah. No, but it was just weird because I know when I did it Monday, I already, gone through a lot of the emotions of it all. But then, man, it just hit me weird. I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
This is still pretty fucking raw. It's going to be raw for a while, dude. It certainly will. The future of the Foo Fighters, man, I don't know. I just feel bad because they were such a tight band. Just friends. Got along. Well, okay.
Say fucking were already. Jesus.
I know. Well, you said they were breaking up. They were going to call it, phone it in, tell them they all quit. So that's on you. Can we move on? I can't do this anymore. I can't fucking do this.
Well,
miserable shit.
Let's take a short break. Let's do something fun. Let's go back and rip off the movie that we talked about in the beginning of this podcast. Everyone's assignment is to go watch from the year 2000. It's celebrating an anniversary on Thursday, 22 years, the movie High Fidelity. And that's what inspired me to bring to the table when we were talking, Jason and I, of how we wanted to do a podcast. I said, we might be a little hacky, but, what about a top 5 thing? And I definitely had High Fidelity on the brain.
You actually had me at hacky.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah. I'm in. Let's do it.
Angus Young turning 67 on Thursday. So I suggested a top 5 AC/DC songs, and I didn't have to twist your arm on this one at all.
This was not, you know what? It was easy, but this one, not that hard.
It was an easy decision to make doing the list. Then when you make the list, that's when it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know why we don't do top 10s, but
we'll be here all night.
I know.
I know you
okay.
do.
You got your list ready. We're going to take a short break. We've got our one sponsor still. So let's say thank you to our friends, Pirates of the Quarter. When you go to New Orleans, I got to get back. Man. I can feel the city calling me. Yeah. Book a tour, Pirates of the Quarter. It's a walking tour throughout the French Quarter. Super fun. I'm in that order because it's fun, but it's loaded with facts, and you're being led around by a pirate, and the pirates are telling you all these real stories of what happened in the French Quarter. There's no other tour like it in the Quarter. Are there other tours? Sure. This is real history, though. These are things that really happen, and you're going to come away. The whole time that you're on this tour, you're going to come away from it. You're going to be talking about it. You're going to say, wow, it's going to be one of the more memorable things that happens to you. If you come in for a weekend and the tour is a part of your weekend, there's no way this isn't going to be one of the absolute highlights of it. Because you're drinking, you're walking around, you're not really stopping, you're partying at all. Real stories, real pirates, their involvement in the history of New Orleans. You'll be very, very surprised. It'll go by quick. But boy, you're standing right in the area where history went down. There's so much more to New Orleans than just Bourbon Street. So save a little time, discover the Pirates history of New Orleans. You can go to piratesofthequarter.com and all the socials at Pirates of the Quarter.
Rod, I heard from our friends over at Pirates of the Quarter Tours, and they mentioned to me the other day. They said, hey, listen, we're really happy with the commercials that are being run on the Playpants podcast. They're working for us. They've had a lot of people from Houston taking the tour the last few weeks, and they've all mentioned, hey, we found out through the Playpants podcast. So if you're considering being an advertiser on the Playpants podcast, it's working for those guys. It really, truly is working for them. So I just want to pass along that information, Rod. I thought that was pretty cool.
I think that's great information.
Fucking great.
And the fact that I, do the commercial, I see why it's working so well. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm the one that seems to fall on my shoulders every week to do the actual commercial. And I see why it's working.
I mean, I do it, but it'd just be weird.
It would be very, very weird. Very weird when you're hearing from the Pirates.
Shit.
Makes it even a little weirder. Let's go, man. Top 5 AC/DC, your favorite songs.
Dude.
Boy, there's a big catalog there. And 2 different singers.
Yeah.
Are you Bon Scott heavy? Are you post Back in Black heavy?
I will say this. I came to AC/DC late. I came through Brian Johnson.
Almost everybody in America came in.
Yeah. Back in Black.
I get it. There's going to be an old guy that said, no, dude, you're wrong. AC/DC was not huge until Brian Johnson, Back in Black,
right
here in America. Okay. Yeah. So your trajectory is like most. It's different. Van Halen was huge with David Lee Roth.
Right.
And then Sammy Hagar. Similar situation with AC/DC, but they were much bigger in the rest of the world. But Brian coming on board, that's when America said, OMG. Then you go down and you start digging some of the old, Bon Scott stuff, which,
it's great too. So
it's fucking great.
It's just raw. It's just raw and a little grittier. Yes. I mean, AC/DC is a gritty fucking working man's band, but man, the Bon Scott stuff is really raw. So, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I love telling this story about how Brian Johnson got in the band. Okay, Bon Scott dies. AC/DC wants to keep going. They want to keep making music. They're still young. And they had a lot of the music written for Back in Black. So they needed to sing.
Now, hang on a second. I just want everybody to absorb this is a great story. And maybe this will apply to something that we just got done talking about. So please continue your story. And I want you to think about things that have already been covered in this podcast. So AC/DC loses their singer. Please, Jason, continue.
They're in mourning, the whole thing. But they also got commitments and they want to make another album, which ended up becoming Back in Black. Brian Johnson had been in this band called Geordie with a G-E. I'm not going to spell it for it because I can't spell it. Geordie go look it up. There's some decent songs actually. And it's all very much that late 70s, early 80s sort of style, and a little more poppy sounding. And Brian Johnson sounds a lot different in this band. He had given up. The band didn't take off. He was going to go do like some mechanic work. He auditioned. He had 2 auditions in one day. It actually wasn't an audition. He had work and an audition in one day. He went and recorded a commercial for a vacuum cleaner company, right? Mm-hmm. To make like just a couple of bucks. And he did. And he sings on this jingle. You can find it on YouTube. He sings a jingle for a vacuum cleaner company. He's like, okay, cool. I made a few bucks. Then he had an audition literally like across the street with AC/DC. And he walks in and he said he was nervous as shit, right? And they handed him a couple of beers. He chilled out, talked to the boys, went in, banged out a few songs, sang some covers, I believe. I don't even know if it was AC/DC songs. And not much longer after that, your boy's in AC/DC.
It was months, guys. It was months.
Yeah.
So
that was a while. It was a while afterwards.
Go back to the Foo Fighter discussion that we just had. They lost their singer, and the fucking Young Brothers are a machine.
They're working.
And they loved Bon. Bon's story of him getting in the band is a great story, but it was only months,
right,
that they put out Back in Black, and they went out and toured and people are holding up signs, fuck you, Bon lives, you suck. This is what Brian Johnson has to walk into.
Right.
That band did not, I'll say it, that band didn't wait enough time.
No.
They did not put enough time, Bon Scott's death, into when they went in and recorded. They took almost no time off at all. What the fuck? That's insane. That's insane because David Lee Roth didn't die. The huge difference outside of what I had already mentioned is a singer didn't die. A singer quit. As a matter of fact, that anniversary is coming up. He quit on April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
So he's still alive. Then and he's already doing his own thing. He's very quick to put out his little cover songs and everything. And then they ran out and got a singer. But mourning the death, AC/DC, those are some cold motherfuckers.
Well, you say they're cold motherfuckers, but AC/DC came up working class, hardworking, always working balls off. Everyone grieves differently. A lot of people, when something like this horrible happens, how many people have you seen over the years will pour themselves right into work? They will just be like, I can't sit around because all I'm doing is thinking about this shit. I need to get right back on the horse and get back to work. It distracts me. It's what I like to do. I just get to thinking, I get the feeling that those guys are just hardworking mofos at the time. Just didn't want to quit. They just loved it so much.
A brand new singer in there. Now, listen, the history of Back in Black and that album, it's amazing. Crazy. It's one of the biggest selling albums of all time. But boy, I just think it was so unbelievably raw. They took him out on the road and this guy is singing and fans are still mourning. And the Young Brothers seem to be okay with it. Yeah. The fans weren't ready for it. They were not. And, that album, it hit. It was big immediately. But it's not that radio didn't pick it up. It's not that people didn't buy the album. It's just people were emoting at the concerts. And it was very rough for Brian. It was so flippin' soon.
Yeah, see, I didn't think about all that. I didn't know that. I just thought, hey, they got the guy in the band. That album comes out. It's one of the biggest albums ever, and everyone lived happily ever after. I didn't think
nobody cared in America because that's kind of like how most people found AC/DC here. Right. But everywhere else, AC/DC was pretty big, and man, they're putting a brand new guy out there months after the singer that they loved died. And it just wasn't enough that, well, if the band's okay with it, I'm okay with it. It didn't seem like that was the case. It was that soon. Because you would think, hey, if Dave's okay with it, going back to what we talked about, and he put somebody in there and they end up playing Jazz Fest, if Dave's okay with it, I'm okay with it. I am. Fans were not okay with the lead singer dying and plugging someone else in. It was It was insanity. Those guys, they didn't. The Young Brothers didn't miss a beat, man.
Those guys, I don't know, man. They don't look like they're going to win any science awards. You know what I mean? They don't look like the smartest guys in the world. They look like they know how to play guitars. They know how to rock. They know how to do what they do really well.
But it's their business. I mean, and that's one of the deals with Brian. I don't know. I have no idea what it was like with Bon, but I can tell you that Brian Johnson never felt like he was a full-on member of the band. And that's where a lot of the contention came from, where, he never, it took Ronnie Wood to be an equal partner forever. Now, it comes down to who's going to write the songs and the songwriting credits. That's a whole separate thing. But when it comes to the business of the Rolling Stones, dude, he was in the band forever before they said, okay, you're kind of in the band now. It's like, fuck, Ron. None of us remember the singer, the guitar player, Brian Jones.
Brian Jones was like way back, and he died in the early 70s, I think.
That's who Ron Wood replaced. Ronnie Wood was in that band for 20 years before they made him a full-blown member of the Rolling Stones. I think Angus and Malcolm, it's their band. They're the brothers. And again, why anybody would want to get into a band with brothers? Fuck.
Not a good idea.
Tell me one case where it's been good for. It's awful for everyone else in the band if you don't share the last name of the people that are running the show.
Gosh, Van Halen, Kinks, Oasis, AC/DC, Black Crowes. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to find a good one. You can name them.
It's hard. Ones. So
Nelson, those two guys seem to get along. Nelson. The twins.
Yeah, but how is it for everyone else in the band? That's the point.
It's just those two.
But yeah, Brian, I felt he has alluded to the fact that he never really felt like he had an equal partnership with the brothers. That, it's like, okay, you work for us. It's like, it's not really how a band should work. So some of this is speculation. Some of it has come out in interviews before too. So I
can't believe I name dropped Nelson.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, Jesus.
But it was weirder you name dropping when you talk to the Pirates. You want to go first?
Yeah, you're right. It's pretty fucking weird. I was trying to see if you'd even catch it. I was trying to play that off. Damn it. Yeah, why don't I go first? Because mine will be easy. I just was like, yeah, I like this one. 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 And I like all the rest too, but I really like these ones.
I'm going to, and when we're done with ours, my next door neighbor is from Australia. I figured he'd have something to say about it. So I got his top 5 afterwards.
Oh, that's cool.
Directly from Down Under, he's got his top 5. So, all right, let me hear. I'm excited.
Number 5, Hell's Bells. Hell's Bells, I love, and I loved it more. I was doing research on some AC/DC stuff a long time ago, and you hear those bells. And they swing at them in the concert. They bring the bell out, and they're bang, and it's loud as shit. And it's very cool, right? So the story behind the bell is they had the song written, recorded, done, locked, loaded, okay, but they wanted a bell to go through the song, especially to start it off. They wanted a really kick-ass sounding bell. Well, they weren't going to use a sound effect because it's fucking AC/DC, dude. They wanted a real bell. So they're like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go to some churches and we're going to put some microphones. Remember, this is what? Late 70s, early 80s, They microphone these bells in these churches up in the bell towers. They ring the bells and they could never get a good recording because all the fucking birds, every time they ring the bell, the birds would go flying up. So they could never do that. They ended up spending all this money and going to a factory and getting a 1-ton bell custom made in, because bells have certain, what do you call it? Chimes or keys they're in. Like they don't ring the same key, I guess is what it's called. So they wanted it in a certain key. So they spent all this money having a custom made bell. And then the album had a deadline. So the bell had just got finished just enough. They were going to bring it back to the States where I think they were going to mix the album in New York. And they didn't have time because it was so heavy and it would take forever to ship. So they had to record it over there. Then they brought the sound effect back to the recording studio. And then they still ended up slowing it down and changing it all. They spent all this fucking effort on this stupid bell.
It's
AC/DC.
It's interesting because it's hard to go back and listen to that song and try to tap your toe to the bell. And it's an odd time signature. It really is. It's not on the downbeat, right? And it's difficult, but he plays it. It reminds me a little bit of how Queen songs, Brian May doesn't give a fuck what time signature they're in. He's just kind of doing his thing. And it's like, somehow he gets from point A to point B. It seems like he's all over the place, but he gets to where he needs to be. Right. That bell, if you listen to it, it's not perfect syncopation. It tends to drive me as a drummer a little nutty, but it works though. It does work. It's just, It's an odd time signature. The way that he wraps his guitar around the bell, because the bell is what's kind of keeping time,
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot. The bell, Brian Johnson, you're right. They lower it. That's a prop bell, right?
I don't think that's way too much to be carried.
It's too heavy. It would be too much to carry. So it's a prop bell. I mean, it's a big bell that they use. If you've never seen AC/DC, I mean, they put on an unbelievable show, and they still do all those little gadgetry tricks. And, you're looking for, I don't want to ruin any more of your list, but they've got certain things that, just like Gene Simmons blows fire before fire at the end of Firehouse, and the blood's going to be, he's going to do all his stuff before certain songs.
Just so you know, because people ask me after I tell the Hell's Bells story all the time, they go, well, what about Metallica, For Whom the Bell Tolls? I said, no, they just used the sound effect in the studio. They didn't waste all that money and time. It sounds the same to me. I don't know the difference. Anyway. And
that is a bass guitar riff too. Have we talked about that?
What do you mean?
Do, 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 do.
Oh, really?
That's a bass. That's Cliff.
Oh shit! I always thought that was a guitar.
Everybody thinks it's a guitar. That's Cliff Burton, man. That's the bass.
Shit, man. Fuck. That's
Do,
awesome.
do. And if you see him live, you know, and you just got fucking Robert Trujillo slithering around doing it. It's so great. What is your number 4 AC/DC's favorite song?
Dude, I think it's fucking Thursday. We're still recording. Oh my God, we're still going. Number 4, Shoot the Thrill. I still love that song. I didn't like it as much. I loved it. And then it was actually, and what brought it back around to me to liking it again was it was an Iron Man 2 back in 2010 or some shit in a very cool scene. And it just fit perfectly with the whole scene. So I was like, oh yeah, I forgot how great that song was.
Did AC/DC do a whole Iron Man soundtrack?
They had songs on one of the soundtracks. I don't think they did the whole thing.
I want to say that there is an AC/DC Iron Man soundtrack.
Possibly. I don't know. I know they did. Remember the movie Maximum Overdrive from the 80s? It had Who Made Who on it and a couple other songs. That was their soundtrack for that movie. I know that for sure. That was number 4. Number 3, Whole Lotta Rosie. Whole Lotta Rosie is so fucking great. And I'll tell you why I love it so much. Is I knew the song. I didn't know it very well. When I started my internship in radio, little young Jason Ginty, all like wet behind the ears and just not knowing a shit about radio. I'm interning. I walk into the 97 Rock studio, the classic rock station in Buffalo. Anita West is on the air. She's one of the greatest fucking jocks you'll ever hear. So cool. Such a badass. And I brought some shit in to the studio, right? And I just put it on the shelf, whatever I had to do. And I'm trying to get out of there without being noticed because I was so scared of everybody. And she turns around, she goes, who the fuck are you? I go, and then I jumped. I fucking freaked out. I go, hi, I'm Jason. I'm the intern. She goes, great. You like AC/DC? And of course, my answer is going to be yes to anything anyone would say at the time. She goes, cool. Hang out and rock with me. And she fucking took, and it wasn't on the air. The song wasn't playing on the air, but in the studio, she put on Whole Lotta Rosie and cranked it so fucking loud I could feel my teeth shaking. And she jumped around like a wild person. And it was so infectious. And then she's like, this is fucking great. Like she's just losing her shit. And I couldn't figure out why she wanted me in there to see all this. And I'm just standing there like a dipshit in the corner, just kind of bopping my head up and down. And then it was done.
Cool, cool, Anita.
And then she's like, fuck, I love that song. Fuck this place. Fuck, I love this song. Like she just was all fired up. I walked out. I'm like, I like that song now. That's so cool. And then after that, me and her talked a lot of music over the years. Shout out to
Whole Lotta Rosie is again another one of the great moments of AC/DC live. They've got the big, huge Rosie inflatable, this huge, voluptuous woman that comes in the backdrop behind the drum kit, and it's huge, and her leg hangs over, and it's
great.
It's another one of the things that you look forward to at an AC/DC show.
And I love the way you described it as voluptuous. Very, very
voluptuous.
Nice. Very sensitive of you.
I can give you the numbers. I can tell you the numbers.
I think we know them. Okay. Number 2, Highway to Hell. Fuck, I still love that song. I still will crank Highway to Hell. And I don't know why. It's got a great hook. It's just cool. And then that was number 2. Shit, number 2.
That's your number 2.
Number 1, For Those About to Rock, dude. For Those About to Rock, it starts off all slow, builds, fucking cannons and shit. It's just, I can't not love For Those About to Rock.
Only one Bon Scott song in your top 5. Interesting.
Yeah. And I know as soon as you go through yours, I'm going to go, oh yeah, I like that song too. But these are what hit me all of a sudden. I was like, yeah, I really like all those songs. You know what song I did like? And I just brought it up, and I know it's only 5. I'm just saying, Who Made Who? I know it's one of their newer songs and nobody really loves it. It doesn't get played on the radio because I guess it doesn't test or whatever. That song fucking just got a cool groove to it. I've always liked Who Made Who, but it didn't make my top 5. So I know it sounds like I'm cheating. I got a 6th in there. So whatever. It's our fucking podcast. Rod, what do you got for your top 5? I want to hear this.
Who Made Who was Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was from that movie. I knew that was associated with the movie as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Our lists are very different.
Finally.
That doesn't always happen. So we unfortunately agreed on something earlier in the podcast. Now we got a little, we can go back and forth a little bit here. Let me see. Let me see what Matt said next door. So my next door neighbor is from Australia.
Like he grew up. He was there when AC/DC was hot in Australia. When did he move?
Yeah. He's our age. He's our age. So he's seen. This is a guy that I'm drinking beers with, and then he's talking to somebody else. And he blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, yeah, when I saw Nirvana, blah, blah, blah. And I'm over here and I went, like, the record on the ripping across the needle ripper. What? I'm not even in his conversation. I said, you saw Nirvana live? He goes, mate, I was wasted. They opened up for somebody at a club. I don't remember much. It's not every day that you meet somebody that saw Nirvana live.
No.
I don't run into a lot of people that can make that claim, and I believe them, Wow. Dirty D, he didn't. Well, I'm going to put it. Okay. So he put it this way. Did he go 5-1 or 1-5? Long Way to the Top, Jailbreak, TNT, Hell's Bells, Dirty Deeds.
Ooh.
That's from Australia. That is a legit next door neighbor list.
Dirty Deeds. Dirty Deeds is good. Dirty Deeds is good. The lyrics are great. Dirty Deeds are fucking. That's cool. That's an evil song.
In at number 5, Thunderstruck.
Really?
Yes, that whole song. Now,
interesting.
And again, because we are on different formatted radio stations, is Thunderstruck something that gets played in regular rotation on a classic rock radio station?
We don't play it a lot. I don't know if it's one of the ones that just don't test or what, but when I say test, I mean, you do research on songs and it just doesn't get good scores for whatever stupid reason. So we don't play it very often. So, that's a good song. Yeah. You heard it at all the sporting events.
Yes. Angus was on a plane. His plane was hit by lightning. He wrote Thunderstruck. He thought he was going to die. That song, it never stops building. There's only one other song that I can think of that starts at point A and it just never stops. Normally songs will go up and down and, sonically it will go to different places for the chorus. And Thunderstruck just keeps, the whole song is a build. Nickelback off of their first album, Leader of Men. The whole song builds the entire time. It starts out real mellow and then it just never, it's just the whole song is a crescendo. Same thing with Thunderstruck. And it's just a brilliant, brilliant song. And that was a bit of a comeback for them too. MTV wasn't really paying attention to AC/DC at that time. They were putting out what we now look at as great material, but it wasn't thought of as being great. So Thunderstruck was really a huge comeback song for them. And it was on MTV all the time. It was great.
But they were so fucking ugly dudes. And at the time, everyone was pretty. So, I mean, for AC/DC to get on MTV was tough. Those guys were rough looking boys.
In at number 4, which is a weird kind of a throwaway album for them, but it's always been one of my absolute favorite songs, Jailbreak.
Yeah, that's great.
So Thunderstruck obviously is 1990, so that's going to be Brian. I go back to my number 4. I go Jailbreak, released in 76. We didn't get it over here until the 80s. They knew that they had some songs. If you're wondering about this, it's called Jailbreak 74, which I really don't know the backstory to that because the songs came out and there were some throwaway songs on there. But it's a great album. I have it on vinyl and I have it when it came out. I love that song Jailbreak.
Wow.
Soul Stripper is on there. Babe, Please Don't Go down to New Orleans. Babe, Please Don't Go. They do a cover of that on that. Jailbreak 74 is fucking awesome. It's an awesome, I think it's probably technically considered an EP.
Okay.
So Jailbreak.
I like it.
In at number 4. In at number 3, Touch Too Much.
Wow.
So
that's
outside, I love A Touch Too Much. I Highway to Hell is just an amazing album. So Touch Too Much has always been one of my favorite AC/DC songs. outside of them, I think it was Top of the Pops doing a horrible job of lip syncing it. They never played it live. Bon died shortly afterwards. Okay. They don't play the song live. And nor do they introduce that song into the Brian era. They'd never play that song live. You know when they did it? When they asked Axl Rose to be their lead singer, and he went to the band and he said, I got to tell you, I'll do it. My favorite song is Touch Too Much. And they did it live.
Oh, that's cool.
It was never done live with Bon.
Weird.
And Axl Rose got him to do the song because he said it was his favorite all-time AC/DC song. I don't know if you remember, it was 2016. There was some weird era that Axl Rose was the lead singer of AC/DC for a little while there.
Because Brian Johnson had some he couldn't hear anymore. They said if you kept doing this shit every night, you're going to be permanently deaf. So they said, okay. And then he figured that the boys had stopped the tour and they go relax. And then, no, you're out, bro.
See previous comments on this podcast. Those fucking brothers are animals.
Yeah.
Nobody stops us from what we want to do.
No, not even
they're animals, dude.
Yeah. And then they brought, you know what? The Axl thing, I don't know if I was going to go say AC/DC, I don't know. I kind of wanted to see, I would like to have seen that, but then I kind of like, nah, I don't know.
I did want to see it. And it didn't work out. I can't remember if it came here. I don't remember. For whatever reason, I didn't see it. I wanted to see Axl Rose sing for AC/DC. I thought that was going to be pretty special.
It says a lot about Axl to be able to pull that up. I mean, that's a different style. I mean, Axl's got a cool voice. If he fits it, you know.
Yeah, he does fit it. So Touch Too Much off of Highway to Hell. That's my number 3. My number 2, For Those About to Rock.
Yeah.
We salute you. Jack Black.
Yeah.
In School of Rock does the lyrics. It's so great. It's what they close with. It seemed like they wrote a song because bands will do this. This I can tell you firsthand experience. Even when I was in my dopey band, we needed a song to open our set when we were doing all originals. We needed an opener. You want a flamethrower. You want a song to open. Skid Row, Slave to the Grind was written. The song Slave to the Grind was written to open, I believe. Like they wanted to come out and just start fucking ripping. Okay. You don't come out and do 18 in life. No. So they wanted to melt your face. AC/DC, they wrote a closer, you know. I've told you before, I said, I fucking hate Van Halen. I get it. Jump's their biggest song. When they close with Jump, it is the most deflated fucking ho-hum. Is that the end of the show? Van Halen.
Yeah.
One of our favorite bands of all time.
Didn't like it.
What the fuck are you doing? Why are you closing with this? Anyway, For Those About to Rock, the Cannons, it's the loudest thing you're ever going to hear. If you get a chance to go see AC/DC, if you have seen them, if you can still hear at that point, because AC/DC is notoriously one of the loudest live bands ever. But those fucking Cannons are so outrageous. And it is the ultimate closer of a show. And I feel like that song was written as soon as it was done, as soon as they put it out, they closed with it. And I don't think they've never not closed with it since. They just knew they had that. This is going to be the way to go out.
It's because there's too much fucking smoke in the arena. You can't do anything afterwards. And they ended up burning the shit out of a lot of dudes and fucking up because they tried a bunch of different cannons over the years. It took them a long time to get those cannons right. They ended up doing a lot of damage over the years until they finally perfected the cannons.
The Cannons are awesome. When they come rolling out, they, you know that the show's getting to the end. You know they haven't played that song yet. And then the Cannons the Cannons roll forward. They're in the back. You don't see them the whole concert. And then all of a sudden the Cannons come out. You're like, fuck yeah. Now, unfortunately, you know that's going to be the end of the show. Right. But, oh, shit. They're going out with For Those About to Rock, which is my number 2. Oof. I'm going back to Bon. I'm going back to 1975. It's a long way to the top if you want to motherfucking rock.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
And I know you're a bagpipe guy, but the bagpipes, awesome. That song, the tale, it is autobiographical. They were cheated and swindled and everything happened to them. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock. They were put up in shitty hotels and they wrote about it in a song. It's like it was their way of saying, if this was easy, everyone would do it. And that's what that song, it's the essence of the band. And they do that one live. I mean, Brian does cover older stuff. And there wasn't really that was a big difference between David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar. They had to do some of that Bon Scott stuff. And long way to the top if you want to rock. My favorite AC/DC song of all time. There's never a bad time for that song to be on.
No, and at the end of the movie, Jack Black, which we're doing a lot of Jack Black today. It's weird. At the end of the movie School of Rock, they kind of end with that. They keep going and going and going with it. And the kids are playing. It's fucking great. It's such a great movie. You know what? That movie is so much fun. You can watch that with kids because kids that age, like 10, 12, 13, will just be like, no way, that's awesome. Look at those kids are cool, Fuck, I forgot about the bagpipes in that, man. That's so cool. I mean, how often
they did a video, and I'll give them credit. I think they were the first because Dokken years later mimicked it in one of their videos. But the video for that, and it looks old school. It's awesome, but they're on a flatbed and they're driving around town, and they made a video of a flatbed truck, an 18-wheeler, but it's a flatbed, and they're all out there and they're playing that song. And, the syncing of the lip syncing and everything, it's not matching up, but it doesn't matter. It's just so cool. Dokken did that back in their heyday. It's Not Love from Tooth and Nail. And they were cruising around Sunset Strip, and they did it on the back of a truck. And it's a fucking great video. Just like U2 borrowed from the Beatles on the roof. Dokken stole that from AC/DC. And I know other bands have played on flatbeds. Foo Fighters played on a flatbed before. I think they were punking the Westboro Baptist Church, weren't they?
Yeah, they all had like long beards and they were playing all this disco and shit, man. Yeah, going back to the Foo Fighters, that's what's so great about that band. They were just out there having fun in any way they could. They would just have fun and poke fun at those guys,
What was list. So you mentioned something that was on your fringe. Back in Black, Live Wire. Both of us stayed away from Shook Me All Night Long. Saw that.
Dude, I mean, how many white people weddings you gone to when that shit comes on and the whole place goes nuts? I don't need it. We still play it. It's still a great song. It's an amazing song. I'm good. I'm good here. Got it. We're good. And it's a goof and you don't want to hear it all the time, but like Big Balls is just fucking funny and it's good and it's ridiculousness. You know what I mean? I'm not going to play that at the house because that's really stupid, but it's childish.
That was a part of, I think, Bond's charm. Right. He was schoolboyish. I mean, I know that, Angus wore the schoolboy uniform, but there was something really playful about Bon Scott. And his voice was playful as well. And you're talking about a rock band, okay, that fucking rocked as hard as anybody. But there was always something playful about him. I mean, he, like Eddie, was smiling on stage, and he seemed like he was such a likable guy. And, Big Balls and stuff. He had fun with his voice. He had fun with it. He had an odd, strange voice, but it worked so well.
Yeah. I thought that was a song that was like, I was never put that on my favorite, but it's just like one of those songs every once in a while you hear it, you're like, oh, it's fucking cool, man. That's really cool. So hit us with your top 5 list. Drop it in the comments on the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, of course. Hit us on social media. Give us your top 5s. I love going through the top 5s because, again, every time I'm like, oh, yeah, shit, we forgot about that song. Can't tell you how much my music appreciation is expanded over the last year of this podcast. And by the way, we've been doing this for a fucking year.
This is episode 46. And I know we took a couple weeks off here and there. Yeah. Sure.
It's been, because it's coming up on my Facebook memories that some of our first video and stuff we're getting going. We're almost a year old now, if we're not already.
Fuck.
I know, dude. A year of this horse shit.
I quit. Peace out. I haven't quit. I don't remember the last time I quit the podcast. It's been forever since I quit.
Well, he might have gotten.
Seems like a good idea right now. Okay. A year. Deuces.
Call it right. That's enough. You get your Wednesday nights back. That's kind of cool. That would be kind of fun, right?
What's on Wednesday night? Blackish. I could watch Blackish again live. I don't have to record it.
I don't watch fucking TV, man. I don't pay attention. Any final thoughts tonight, Rod?
I did, and I know we already kind of talked about some bummer stuff, so I'll keep it lighter, tighter, and brighter because I know that he would want that. But unfortunately, and I had a friend of mine that it was an acquaintance of mine, but it was a friend of mine. He committed suicide. I hadn't talked about this on the radio. I hadn't really wanted to bring it up. And you're like, Rod, Jesus, why are you dropping this, anchor on us, at the end of the show? He was quoted as saying one time, because the last time I spoke with him on the phone, he's a guy from back North Tonawanda, and he's a year older than me. I didn't really know him growing up in school, but I came to know him and seen him out all the time. And he was a huge Bills fan. He was a big Bills fan. He was one of those guys that had the RV and took it out there and partied at all the games. And, I never saw it. And that's the thing about, people that are dealing with these things. You just don't see it. When you see a smiling picture of Robin Williams, and then it'll say, this is the face of depression. It's like, it's Robin Williams. And you just don't know what somebody's going through. And it was one of those ones that kind of caught me off guard. But he said one time, and I thought it was pretty awesome. He wasn't a guy that had a whole lot of things. Okay. He wasn't a things guy. I'm a things guy. I could walk you around and I got this, and this, and there's things on shelves. And he wasn't a things guy. He goes, but I got ticket stubs. And that's what he got enjoyment out of. And I wish he had gotten more enjoyment out of it. But the things that he loved the most, it was number one, he was a Bills fan. His service was tonight. And I just talked to our buddy Briggs who went, and he said it was tough. He said half the city showed up for the guy. Oof. But he goes, I don't really have things, but I have ticket stubs. And that's what mattered to him. And I was talking to him about Jazz Fest. He wanted that whole Grateful Dead experience. And he wanted, I'm walking him through New Orleans and what he needs to do. And that's what he wanted. That was his jam. And I just thought that was really, really interesting. He goes, I don't have things, but I've got ticket stubs. And Marshall, I love you. And I wish there was someone you could have spoke with, So again, going out on a bummer, but the guy went to the concerts, man. He went to the shows. He wanted experiences. And I think we're now looking at it as that's something that people covet, even when you're talking about gifts for people. And, what's the big gift this Christmas, prior to this last one, experiences. Yeah. People want experiences. They want to go out and do things because we hadn't been able to go out and do things for a long, long time. And he had the experiences, so I'll say that. And I didn't want to go out on a bummer, but he was just a music guy. I wish he just got even more joy out of it, because I know that was his favorite thing in the world. Jesus, that's brutal, man. I don't really have a final thought, but I will go down this road with you on the experience thing. It was like 4 or 5 years ago, pre-COVID. And, my kids, I've got a much older daughter and a younger son. So for Christmas, I'm like, man, we're spending all this money. And at the end of the day, you have stuff, and the kids will play with the shit for a little while and then it's gone. They don't give a shit. It's very short term. So I came up with an idea and I said to my wife, I go, hey, what if we took all this money we blow on this shitty toys and all the bullshit, and we take a family trip once a year, but we finance it through not buying a lot of gifts at Christmas. We'll get you, if you need something, experience. So we ended up, the first year we took the kids to Paris, France. And it was one of the most unbelievable fucking things I've ever done in my life. To have your kids and you're traveling, you're tired, you're dealing with the metro and figuring out where you're going, you're lost, and you just embrace it and you make it fun. I've got so many great memories from that trip. We went to Mexico one time, a couple of years later, same thing. We got so lost, and it's the little things. Sure, you're going to do all the fun touristy things, you're going to go see the sights, but it's all those little moments along the way in between those things. That's what's great about it. And that's what I've always done. So I see what that guy was trying to do. He went to the concert. That was his thing. I love going to concerts. I love going to shows. Christmas is a lot different around my house since we made that decision. It's like, we won't buy a lot of shit,
go do the things. You know what I mean? You
do the
memories,
things.
The memories are way cooler, man. I would rather not have a bunch of shit and go and travel. And now that hopefully we can travel a little bit easier, well, I plan on doing that a lot more.
That was, the last time I talked to Dinah and she was on the air with us and she said, do the things, she said that. And, she said that on the air. Going back to the Taylor Hawkins thing, how we're kind of processing that, this is all happening in the same week. Marshall, my friend, commits suicide. He hung himself, and
Jesus.
And then this, and then our buddy Mike's father passes away. It's just, there's a lot. There's a lot. And I did take a second on the air when we were talking about Taylor, and I said, hey, thanks everybody that reached out to me. You don't have to worry about me. And I do mean that when I say that. But that's what you're supposed to do. The amount of emails that I received, Rod, you okay? I know how much you love the Foo Fighters. Just saw the Taylor Hawkins thing. Just checking in, making sure you're cool. Now, you're sending me an email because these people, they don't have my number. But that's what you're supposed to do. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to pick up the phone. You're supposed to call. Everybody at that service tonight wishes that Marshall had called them. You're supposed to make yourself available. You're supposed to check in. You can't beat yourself up. Oh, I should have known. You would have never known with this guy, but check in on people, make sure they're good. And people did that. And I thanked everybody that sent me an email. It's like, Rod, I know it's your favorite band, man. I just saw the Taylor Hawkins, man. I hope you're doing okay. That's it. That's awesome. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
I'll leave you with this. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline, Lifeline, 800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255. Sorry to bring it on a low note, but he did the things. He wanted experiences, and he left a shit ton of ticket stubs behind. He went out there and he lived. So he did it. He was doing the things. He was trying his best, but he was doing the things that were making him happy.
Wow. This maybe next week we'll actually try and be a little more uplifting in the podcast.
Yeah, right.
Jesus Christ. But that, you know what, dude, to wrap this up, that's how life goes. You're going along, things are going great. You're cruising along, and you have highs and lows. It's just like a song, other than Thunderstruck and the Nickelback song. It doesn't just keep building. Life has ups and downs.
I can't think of another one. It's just, those are the two songs that they start at point A and then they just never stop trying to get to, they just keep growing the whole time.
But that's how it goes. You're going to have ups and downs, man.
Yes.
And you know what? We did this podcast and it sucked, but I was glad to be able to talk through the Taylor Hawkins
declaring this podcast sucking. Did you just say we just did this podcast and it sucked?
I didn't mean it that way. It kind of did. No, I'm kidding.
It's like, we haven't even published this thing yet. As we're talking live right now, we have not even put this out on the internet. If you think it sucks, let's not put it out there.
No, we'll put it out there. It's pretty good. No, I didn't finish my sentence.
We just did this podcast. It sucks.
We did this podcast. It sucks that we spent a lot of time talking about death, and
we did.
Of our favorite things, or one of our favorite bands loses a member in Taylor Hawkins, and that sucks. But you know what? You're going to have down times, but you're going to have up times. This is the way life goes, up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
By me talking through the Taylor Hawkins shit today with you, which I couldn't wait to do since Friday, I was like, I can't wait. I'm not gonna talk to you over the weekend because I want to waste it. It's too good material.
Don't waste it. Don't waste it.
So excited, not excited, but I was so like looking forward to it, to be able to go, hey, look, here we are. Because we would have had this conversation whether there was a podcast or not at some point.
Absolutely.
So it was good to go through it. And I feel better for it. And that's what it's about. Like, that's what you're saying. Talk to people, man. You just talk to people.
Yeah.
Reach out, check on people.
Yeah. I learned that lesson. There's been so much of this, and veterans, is one of the big ones. That's where you get the whole 22. We're losing 22 veterans a day from suicide. And every veteran says, man, just call me. It's like that. It's that, it's such a family. It's such a brotherhood, whether you're male or female. It's just pick up the phone, call somebody, call somebody, call somebody. Especially
now, think about this 2 years of COVID, man. That's just, everyone's different now. I don't care who you are, man. You're different. Everyone's different. in one way or another. You're just different. So especially from all the shit that's gone down the last couple of years, man, you just, make a phone call. Either way, I know I've always been kind of bad at that. And I've gotten better over the last couple of years, just because I'm like, shit, man, I'm a dick. I need to talk to people more often, So consider this my call to all my friends, and we're good for a couple of years, right?
Yeah. Okay. When I say call someone, it doesn't mean to call me, but call someone else.
Oh man, what the hell, dude? Shit. Yeah. All right, that's enough for tonight, man. Let's put this piece of shit to bed.
I mean, we just said that we thought the Foo Fighters are going to fucking break up now. This podcast did suck. This podcast sucks.
It sucked in a lot of ways. We talked through things and found out we didn't like the answers that we came up with. It didn't suck. I thought it was actually pretty cool. But yeah, no, the answers we came up with sucked. That's the problem.
Geez, time to sit down and listen to those two shitty, morose motherfuckers. See what other kind of bummer news they could deliver for a couple of hours to me.
Next week, I'll tell you all about my old pets I used to own that are all dead now. That's what we're going to go through. Top 5 favorite dead pets. That'll be next week on the podcast. Jesus Christ.
Every goldfish I flushed. I'm talking about it next week to air it out.
Welcome to therapy. Holy crap.
Enough.
All right. That's enough. I'm out of here.
Bye, guys. Thank you. If anybody's still listening or watching.
Let's go. It's time. Put on pants.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts. See us on our YouTube channel and follow our social media pages at PlayPantsPod.